So my name's Tom Valentine. I'm the youngest of three boys. I'm 43. I have five children. Like I said, I'm from Marietta, Ohio. My parents, I grew up, they were really bad alcoholics. They were very abusive, to the point of selling food stamps all the time for alcohol. You know, go into a store, get change. You better not spend more than a nickel so that they can get the 95 cents to buy their beer. You know what I mean? I grew up in bars. I've seen a lot of abuse. I've seen a lot of violence. So I grew up thinking that violence and all of that and sexual stuff was the way that you showed love to each other. At the age of 5 years old, I was brutally beaten and raped by a guy that my parents met at a bar and brought home. They did nothing about it. So I grew up with the fear of people knowing about it, thinking that, you know, this and that about me. But so I stayed away. I was a loner. I was an abstinent person. I stayed by myself. My two older brothers, they were into sports and everything else. I stayed at home. I didn't go to school. I hated school because we grew up poor. So like in third grade, I was on probation. And it sucked because my probation officer lived 1 block away from my house, so I really couldn't hide from him when I was skipping school. When I was 15, I was sent down here to the Lawrence County boys group home. I did 6 months down here. I loved it because we did the Marine boot camp out at the old alternative school. I loved it for the 6 months. It taught me a lot of respect, a lot of self-respect, and how to respect other people. I never went back to school still. Probation officers had me handcuffed. They'd take me in one door, they'd unhandcuff me, and I'd walk out the other door. I tried marijuana for the first time when I was about 12. Didn't get high the first few times. So then I continued doing it because I thought it was cool. It's what everybody else was doing. And I wanted to do anything and everything to be able to fit in and to keep the limelight off of that feeling that they knew about me being raped. So tried to fit in anyway. Started drinking really heavy when I was about 15. My parents were cool with it as long as I was buying them alcohol too. I worked at Taco Bell forever. I would work all day, open and close, 7 days a week, massive overtime. That's when Natty Ice was only $9.99 a case, and like 8 of us would go and we'd load up. Me and my brother got into a really bad altercation when on his 18th birthday. I had to move to Columbus, Ohio, to my cousin's house. That's when I was 17, and I became a manager at McDonald's in Gahanna, Ohio. That's when the big boy stuff started coming in. The other drugs, the hard drugs, cocaine and all that kind of stuff. Finally, the joy and happiness of doing those ran out. So I wanted to go back home, so I did. I went back home. And my dream always was to be a father, be a husband, be a family man. So I met a woman at work. We went on a date, and she got pregnant the first time we had sex. So I manned up, and I stayed with her. I ended up marrying this woman. We worked side by side as managers at Taco Bell for 10 years. We ended up having 3 children, and we fucking hated each other, but we lived together for our kids' sake. So while working at Taco Bell, I continued my drinking. I dabbled here and there with like the little Vike 5s and the little Xannies or whatever, not too much. And again, I didn't hang out with people my age. That's back when stealing copper and all that shit was really cool, and I just wasn't down for stealing because I know what it's like to work for things. So I hung out with the older people. I started going to the bar, got into the bar scene. I loved it, the fun, the happiness of just seeing other people getting drunk just like I was. It was awesome. Like I said, I had 3 children with her. I caught my first felony DUI in the state of West Virginia in 2008. I got, I guess, lucky / when they pulled me over, they beat the shit out of me, so they had to dismiss all the charges and let it go. And I caught my second one in 2010. This one wasn't no joke. I ended up doing 3 years in the state of West Virginia for the first offense DUI over there. I have a total today of 9 DUIs. I used to be that father that would let his children run around the back seat of the car with no seatbelt, but I ran a seatbelt through my 30-pack handle so it didn't roll around. I was that guy. I always had to have 2 other people with me while I was drinking and driving. That was my thing. One sat up front, talk to, one in the back to hand me the beer. It's just how I rolled for the longest time. And I never really noticed that I had a problem, because I was like, anytime somebody said something about my drinking, I was like, when you start paying my bills, you start buying my beer, all this stuff, then you can open your mouth. Until then, you can just shut up. And everyone left it alone. Finally noticed I had a problem when my wife said, if you don't drink Monday through Friday, we will go out to the bar on Friday. When I started drinking Thursday and Wednesday and Tuesday, I noticed I had a problem, and I knew it was going to go bad then. I ended up catching another felony in DUI in West Virginia. Went and did another 3 years. Me and my wife separated. I got out. I was out for 2 days. Caught an Ohio charge. I went to Noble County Prison. Did 9 months there. I got out and went to West Virginia. Within a week, I had another felony DUI. And I was waiting to be indicted for that. I met a young lady who was pregnant. She was in Parkersburg, West Virginia, and so we had like kind of hooked up or whatever, and then she disappeared. I ended up going to prison. While I was in prison, I had a preacher friend. We had talked and stuff, and we talked about what in West Virginia they call pocket parole. Many people have parole, but they have nowhere to go because they've been in prison 50, 60 years. They have no friends or family, nowhere to go. So they're just sitting there. So we have decided to open up a shelter, which is Latrobe Street Mission in Parkersburg, West Virginia. I come out, I ended up getting a job. I worked there for a while. I met the young lady again. We ended up hooking up finally for a good time. I quit my job because it wasn't a lot of fraternizing with the clients, so I chose her over that. We moved to Ripley, West Virginia. She said she didn't want drinking, so I was like, all right. And it was for the first time in my life that I chose family over my alcohol, because I never ever would have done that before, but I quit. Well, I found out that she was doing other things. So I was like, all right, well, where are you getting the money? How are you doing it? Where are you doing it? Who are you doing it with? Whatever. So I started giving her money. I was like, bring it home. At least you're doing it here. I did heroin for the first time. I fell in love. I become a soulless bastard at that point. I didn't care what I did, what I done to get my fix. If it included buying diapers, formula, whatever, I was not buying any of that stuff. We was buying stuff on Wick, and I was returning it back to Walmart, getting money back out of it and stuff. That's what a true person who's willing to admit their faults would say, and I am willing to admit my faults. So we ended up losing that apartment. We went back to Marietta. We lived in a storage unit. I gave my 2 kids to my mom. My other 3 kids were living with my ex-wife at that time. I gave my kids to my mom and dad, stayed in that storage unit. That third felony DUI finally caught up with me, so I went to prison again. While I was in prison, I sat in there, and my baby mother had left me for my uncle. She was with him for 2 years. I got out. 12 days after being out, them 2 overdosed. And I saw the first, real overdose in my life at that point. I saw her, there on the gurney bed. And that put a strong trauma, PTSD in me. You ever hear that gurgling sound? It's real shit. I begged her to stay in the hospital, but my uncle was, complaining to take her out of there because he was about to be charged with manslaughter or attempted manslaughter for the overdose. I ended up going to jail that night. Following Tuesday, he dies, literally dies, ODs again. And to me, I didn't care. I had no care for him at all. He was worthless to me. Got back with her, and we had another child together. I got really bad in the methamphetamines in Parkersburg, West Virginia, and I am not tooting my horn. I am not anything special, but I got with some very big people. My person's mom was a bail bondsman lady. She was the bounty hunter, so I had to connect. The FBI and all that stuff started following me around, connecting me to him. They caught me up, and they said if I didn't wear a wire that they were going to fucking, take me to jail. I said, you can't do that. I'm not wearing a wire. I'm not doing any of that shit. So I was scared. I called and I told him, I said, look, you pack up your shit and get the hell out of there because they're on to you because they stopped me, blah, blah, blah. Well, they ended up catching him. I ended up going to jail. His mom bonded me out, got me out, and I went to Marietta to run. I got caught up on some probation violations. I got sent to the Washington County Jail, and where I did most of my life at. I used to say that was my second home. When I say that, it was like I worked at a gas station. This lady come in there, and she was really embarrassed, and she slid me this address, and she said, can you tell me where this is at? And I flipped it over, and I looked. I'm like, yeah, that's my home address. What the hell? And she said, I'm sorry, but that's the jail. I'm like, yeah, that's where I live, basically. It's where I'm at all the time. So, yeah. So I made a joke of it, and I used to give the COs tours of the jail because I knew it so well. I'm like, I didn't care. I'm like, go through that door, it'll take you there, blah, blah, blah. So they offered me a chance of a lifetime, and I took it. I was offered to go to the counseling center in 2016, going into 17, February the 7th. I had no idea about treatment, recovery, any of that kind of stuff. I had dabbled with meetings before, AA meetings and all that stuff. I'm like, that's occult bullshit. There ain't no way these people are happy and sober. There ain't no way I'm going and doing that shit because I'm not a quitter. I'm not doing it. So my first 90 days through there, I'd go to a meeting and all I heard was like blah, 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 just white noise bullshit. And I didn't care to listen to it at all. I thought I had it. I got this, as we say. I completed, within a week later, I was on the east end of Portsmouth getting high. And I did that for about 3 months. We ended up having our last child. Our child was, I don't want to say taken, but given to the CPS because we were both high. Mother went to jail. I was on the streets, and I found out that my daughter was in custody of CPS by the dope man, and that was pretty shitty. So I turned myself over to the treatment and went back in. Went to the 4th and Court meeting in Portsmouth, and I heard a female lead, and everything clicked. Everything snapped into place. Instead of the white noise, instead of the blah, 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 I started hearing words of trauma, words of realization, words of recovery, and ways to do it. And from that moment on, that's where my recovery started. That first 90 days wasn't nothing. I stayed in, I completed. I went to Chesapeake, Riverside, their sober living out on Big Branch. I completed it. This whole time I got a CPS case plan. I'm trying to meet everything. I complete that. I go to Proctorville. I'm living in Proctorville. I got a job at Outback in Barboursville. I'm doing great, doing excellent. I win my case plan. I'm getting my daughter back. But the person who has my daughter was the baby's mom, and she was a CPS worker out of Jackson County, West Virginia. So she threw every curveball at me that she could think of. And finally the judge said, I've had enough. He's done his duties. He's getting his daughter. 1 week prior to getting my daughter full time, she threw some sneaky shit at me, and I got served with a protection order, restraining order, and I was not allowed to have contact with my daughter. She had thrown out some allegations and bullshit. And I called my CPS worker, and I told her, I said, hey, what is this? Why is this happening? And she said, well, she can't do that. I said, but she's doing it. Here's the paperwork. I told you not to be letting her go over there. I myself, I can't make any contact with my daughter. I can't do anything. The Ohio State Attorney General's office had to get involved to get my daughter pulled back over to the state of Ohio. I relapsed that day because I was feared of everything that was being said and being done. And anybody could say that they know that I didn't do it, but the court systems, as we all know, is pretty shady as hell. Because if the evidence is sitting right in front of them in black and white that it's not true, but yet they're still proceeding with the court cases, it's pretty shady, pretty fucked up. So December 28th, I apologize for any inconvenience. We're going to turn this back over to the state of Ohio. We're sorry for taking your daughter, kind of bullshit. I'm like, really? I ended up catching some serious charges. I was facing 17 and a half years in prison. I did 9 months in this Lawrence County jail. If anybody knows what that jail is like, that's a dungeon. They used to transport us to Monroe and Morrow County. I was in there and we stayed high as hell every single day. Like, I stayed so high that I lost my voice for 3 days, and the trays were stacked up. Like, nobody was eating, nobody was nothing. I saw like some severe violence, not only from inmates, but from the COs, the deputies. You kept your mouth shut. You didn't say nothing to them, or they were beating you. And the ones around here, they know that there's many stories, many videos of what goes on in that jail down there. We all know it. So, why I was doing that, May 28th, 2019 was my clean date. And I woke up in the trustee pod, and there was still plenty of stuff that I could have used and got high on, but I decided I am not getting high no more. No matter what God did to me, whether I was going to do the 17 and a half years or whether I was going to do just one day, I was not getting high again. And in that whole process, this court system was not taking me to court. I was not receiving plea deals. I was not nothing. My attorney was Butch Morford. He sucks. He needs to retire. But from that May 28, 2019, after that, things started working. I started going over getting plea deals and everything because I had turned my life over to the care of God and my understanding, because I said, I am done. And that's when I took ownership and fault and quit blaming others for my charges. And I took ownership for my charges, because no matter what the other person did, I'm the one that did it myself, because I allowed these people into my life to fuck my life up. So it was nobody else's fault. It was mine. It didn't matter what they did. I got sentenced. I went to Chillicothe prison, judicialed out, went to Star, did Star, and I went to Lawrence County Recovery. I was in there, and I had a really good counselor, and he would call on me for everything. And I'm like, look, do not call on me, because I don't have the answer. If I had the answer, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair right now. But I was rude. I was heartless. I didn't care. Like, these people that would quote the books of NA or AA from front to back, me and my friend Boomer, we would make bets. They would last 1 week or 2 weeks before they either left or relapsed or died. It's just what it was. Because I was like, it doesn't matter. You can know the words of it. You can know all that shit. Unless you're applying it to your life, it doesn't mean anything. I completed Lawrence County Recovery. I got my own apartment down here by Wendy's in the Gold Camp building. I lived there for 5 years on my own. I did it. I met a really good friend in that time, Dynasty. I worked at Marco's Pizza for a long time. I finally made it after all my restaurant years of doing things. I finally became a general manager of Marco's, and I bounced from the Ironton to Barbersville to Huntington, back to Barbersville, then up to Milton's store. Milton's store was becoming just too much for me. And by this time, I had 2.5 years clean time, and a friend of mine that worked at the counseling center offered me a job, asked me to come there. And I said, I can't do that. And he's like, why? And he said, why are you being so stubborn, hard-headed? And I said, well, look, I said, your job is too easy. And he said, how is my job too easy? Because I'm dealing with addicts. I said, look, you deal with assholes that know that they're assholes, but they're trying to become better assholes. I deal with assholes that don't think that they're assholes, and they're the biggest fucking assholes, dealing with the public. So I stayed. So that was one time I went and did the job interview, got hired, turned it down. I said, you know what, never mind, I'm going to stay right here. Second time come around, I said, okay, this is God telling me I need to go work in treatment. I did. I started working at the, I think it was 617 house in Portsmouth. Now, that house, a friend of mine that I used to use with, and I was in prison and Star with, in the upstairs bathroom, he overdosed and died in that bathroom. So every time I walked through that door, I would stop and say a little prayer, and I was about to do an 8-hour shift in a house where my close friend died in the upstairs. So it was weird. It was hard for me. I told my supervisor, Jimmy, I said, I don't care what happens in the bathroom, it'll stay there until your shift. I think out of 8 months, I was in that bathroom maybe 5 times, because I would not go in it because the sight of seeing it, thinking about it. So let me tell you how he died and why he died, because it happens to most of ours really quick. He completed the TCC. He had like a week left. He come up here to Ironton to his girlfriend that was in this facility, I believe, and they had an argument. He caught some dope, and he took it back, and he shot up in the bathroom upstairs, and he died. So pink and green will always take you out if you're not watching what you're doing. So, well, I left housing and I got stopped off working at Foundations, the detox facility. Fell in absolute love with that job. I got to see people coming in gray, dead like. I got to see them leaving blooming like a flower, beautiful sunshine. Females going to be back with their kids. I remember a guy was on the phone and his little 5-year-old daughter said, "Daddy, I'm so proud of you. Thank you for going into treatment. I'm so proud of you. I love you." That's the shit that made my job worth it. I loved it. I left there, went to Hughes Ranchery to work. I saw some counselors mistreating the clients. That's when I said I had enough, so I went and got my CDCA. I started working at a facility, Southern Hope, and that was a joke. That was a waste of my time. Went to another facility. I saw the clients being mistreated even more. So I took my job a little bit further with it, of like on my days off, took them to meetings, I took them to churches. I did things with them, that other staff members would not do. I left there. I went to Side of Family Behavioral Medicine and I worked there for many months. I saw some really shady shit. So this is where I'm going to step on some toes and I'm probably going to make some people mad. Why come to treatment if you're going to continue to use and let others down? Because all you're doing is wasting valuable getting high time. Why not go back out? And what I say is, sneaking around doing old behaviors while you're sitting here in treatment, you're not only hurting others or yourself, but you're hurting others and your family. And if you think that counselors don't go home feeling the pain from you guys, that's a lie. Because I went home many a nights thinking about shit that had happened. So now I'm going to get into the 12 steps in the meetings. 2018, I started a meeting, which is now in Chesapeake, St. Anne's Catholic Church, Freedom Group on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. That was invented by me, like I said, in August of 2018. It's still running. So even though I messed up and I left it, it has still helped thousands of people. And that was because people said I couldn't do it, said I couldn't start a meeting. And I did it. Real life down here, the Saturday and Monday night meeting, I started it August of 2020. People said I couldn't do it, but I did it. And it has helped thousands of people. When I was in treatment the first time, that's when the opioid addiction was really, really bad and it was killing lots of people. It wasn't cool. When I was at Lawrence County Recovery, we lost like 5 people within a 2-week time frame. It wasn't cool. So let's speed up. I had 5.5 years. I was a counselor for almost 3 years of that. I went to meetings. I didn't need a paper signed. I didn't need to appease the courts or any of that. But I went at least 5 nights a week because I know that that's what saved my ass. By going to a meeting and being a part of the meeting, not just at the meeting. Get comfortable, start talking, sharing what's on your mind, what's on your heart. Start listening to other people. Watch people who go through deaths and know that they don't get drunk or high, but they're still there, that they're doing it. I've done that with my father's death. You get to see how people are living on the outside life, and when life's terms are really hitting people. When bills are due, your car breaks down, all of this. You don't have a treatment house that the bills are always going to be paid. You don't have transport that's always going to take you somewhere. Shit gets really real. I met a young lady. She was from Chesapeake. We was together. She had mental illness. She had schizoaffective and delusions. And this is on and off of methamphetamines. She had delusions, and I learned a lot about mental health at that time. I quit working in treatment. I stayed with her. I lost my medical insurance, so I started smoking the vape pen, the THC, because I didn't have mental health meds. I started substituting. So it just trickled on further and further. We went to North Carolina when Hurricane Helene happened. We went down there to help out. I found a utensil along the road, started smoking out of that utensil thing, and it never stopped. I went downhill real quick. Came back. I had a double hernia, and I couldn't go to the hospital. I couldn't get no surgery done because I was too high on methamphetamines, and I would not quit, so they wouldn't do no surgery on me. So I did that for about 3 months. I was involved with a car accident the day after my surgery. And then 3 weeks after that, Huntington police was chasing a car, and that car hit me head on too. So I stayed out. I continued to use. I got stopped in Ironton, down here in front of my place. Ironton PD come up, found some stuff. My girlfriend did what I told her to do. If she ever found anything, tell her it was mine. I took the blame for it. Everything was supposed to have been okay. They told me to go to treatment. I said, who the fuck are you to tell me I need treatment? I don't need treatment. No, I'm cool. That's my pride and ego getting in the way. Could have killed me. I stayed out. I ran. Finally got indicted. Went to jail. They let me out, put me on an ankle monitor, sent me to Riverside Recovery. I hated it. I didn't like being there. We were locked down. We was not allowed to go to meetings. We was not doing anything. The lady told us that we were convicts, we were criminals, we were this, we were that, and I'm on ankle monitor, and I'm like, don't you know who the fuck I am? I'm Tom Valentine. You're going to take me to a meeting. Didn't work. Didn't work. The thing that was said to me that stuck out to the most to me was from a counselor who says, damn, for you being in recovery so long and being a counselor, you are one entitled person. Yeah, I really am. I thought about it the next day, and I thanked him for that because that's what's still holding me to where I'm at today. My clean date this time is April 2nd of this year. My fiance, with her drug addiction, I told her she had to go to treatment. She went to OVP, did 30 days, got out. She didn't have Ohio insurance. So as I'm sitting in treatment, I'm fighting to get her a bed somewhere. I finally get her a bed, but 1 week before her bed date, I find her dead. Hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I've dealt with death so much of friends and family, but a significant other is totally different. That is the person that I thought I'd spend my forever life with. I was mad, I was angry. It was just something horrible. She was young. She was 38 years old. She had one child, and it was just horrible. Never saw it coming. Never, ever. Did not see it coming. Like I said, I was at Riverside at that time. I got transferred from Riverside to this program here on July 25th, the day of her services. I did not get to go to her services because I was in transport being brought here. I had known about this place for a long time. I always thought it was a cult. I'm like, fuck men that reads. I'm not going there. Never will I go there. But now I am so blessed and thankful that I did come here because my treatment team, they're the dream team. I have the best people that take care of me. They help me through this. They get me through this. They have got me through my grief, my loss of my fiance. They have helped me. They saw me laugh and cry and everything else. And the people that I've been in groups with. I still go to meetings as much as I can. I try to work the steps as much as I can. I go to church. And I've always found that all church didn't work, all meetings didn't work. I had to have a balance of the two, God and the 12 steps. 12 steps comes from the biblical Bible. It's where you'll get that stuff from. So, something stood out to me the other day. And as I said that I was leaving, going back to Marietta, I was in a group setting, and there was a counselor in there. And she was expressing to the other clients that some of the information, most of the information that she knew, she received that from me, from when I was in the meeting setting. And she was just a client of this facility and going to the meetings. So that shows and tells me that I may be a nobody to many people, but I impacted many people's lives. And the things that you do and the things that you say will impact other people, and it could lead them to the best thing ever, or it could lead them down a rabbit hole into the death. So be a part of recovery, be a part of the meetings that you attend, be a part of the groups that you attend, learn, ask questions, educate yourself. That's how I learned so much, is I learned to educate myself. I don't listen to just what others tell me. I look it up, I study it, whatever. As you can tell, I'm off the ankle monitor. My probation finally opened up, said that I can transfer back to Marietta just whenever I decide to. So that's what I'm going to do next week, hopefully. I've been working a job at Wendy's. So it's not the best job, it's not the greatest paying job, but it's a job. I humble myself for the minimum wage, and I do the best that I can when I'm there. So 12 steps are in order. Trust God, clean house, help others. You can't jump in and do your fourth step inventory. You can't just jump in and think that you're going to do your amends, because you've got to build yourself up to it. Because a lot of people, when I go to say I'm sorry to people and they're not willing to accept my apology, that's when people fall out and they go right back out and they're like saying, fuck it, why even try? They don't want to accept my apology anyways. Well, you have to build yourself up and to know that these people don't owe you nothing. You owe them. Because I myself, and many of us have said I'm sorry several times, and I'm sorry doesn't mean shit unless you're actually doing it. The saying is attraction rather than promotion. I can sit and paint my shirt saying I'm in recovery, NA, all this, whatever, but it's called attraction. What I say outside of this room, out by the smoke shack, whatever, if I'm talking about recovery, stuff like that, that's attraction. My stuff follows me from in here to the smoke shack, to my house, to church, whatever. I'm the same person. I'm an asshole all the time. I don't care. I'm just that person. Sit still, trust God, clean house, help others, and humble yourself. Get a little acceptance in your life. Take from these staff members what they are freely given to you, because that was freely given to them. Not all of them are perfect. Pick and choose your battles. But I'm just saying, y'all can do this if you choose to. Nobody else can do it for you. You have to do this. You have to want this yourself. It doesn't matter if you're court ordered here. Take that out of the equation. Just take that off the chopping block. Don't even think about it. Don't look about it. Don't nothing. Think about you and why you are here. Think about the mistakes that you made and how you're willing to change those mistakes so you don't harm yourself, your kids, your parents, nobody else again. So I'm grateful to be able to sit up here and tell my story with this. I was asked again by a staff member today to do this. So I'm very grateful that I was able to do that and share a little bit of education with y'all. And with that, I am done.